Pleased to present Austin Faith Dialogue, brought to you by the Austin Metropolitan Ministries. In the weeks ahead, you will see these and other programs by various denominations. Austin Faith Dialogue, a public affairs series at the crossroads of religion and life. Austin Faith Dialogue highlights the interaction of the religious community with the social and cultural issues in the area in and around the capital city. Austin Faith Dialogue is brought to you by Austin Metropolitan Ministries in cooperation with KTBC TV. Join us now for this week's edition of Austin Faith Dialogue. The play's the thing to catch the conscience of the king. That line from Shakespeare's Hamlet highlights the inseparability of the dramatic and spiritual values in our culture. Hello, I'm Richard Thompson, pastor of Central Presbyterian Church, and your host for this edition of Austin Faith Dialogue. And today we have the opportunity to learn how the Live Oak Theater in Austin is contributing to life-affirming values by the selection and production of its plays. We're pleased to have the director of the Live Oak with us today, Don Toner, and we'll be looking forward to a conversation with him and also with two of the actors from the company who will be doing scenes from two of the plays that have illustrated this spiritual aspect of theater. They are Jill Parker Jones and Thomas C. Parker. We're glad to have each and every one of you here today.
Thank you, Richard. We're delighted to be here.
And I think Don is the director. You are also the founder of the Live Oak Theater?
No. The Live Oak was founded in 1982 by Mac Williams and Jeanette Brown and citizens of Austin, Texas. We are about to enter our 10th year in production of plays in Austin. Live Oak is a professional theater now. It has grown from a community theater to a professional theater. We operate under a small professional theater contract with Actors Equity Association. We are constituent members of Theater Communications Group, which is a nationwide network of professional theaters, including theaters like the Alley in Houston and the Dallas Theater Center and theaters all over the country, professional companies. We are at the small professional theater status at this point, and our ambition is to grow into Austin's resident professional theater company.
I see. So the distinctiveness of it is the fact that it is professional, and you've been here since what year?
I'm starting my 5th season at Live Oak Theater. It seems unlikely, but it's true. I've been here that long. We have created a tremendous body of work, I think, thanks to actors like Jill Parker Jones and Tom Parker and Babs George, Steve Shear, and a huge company of really professional actors who have come together to create an outstanding body of work, hit plays one after the other, and bring a kind of creative force together in Austin that has produced an extraordinary standard of quality.
I have, as a subscriber to your series, I know what you're talking about and would affirm that from the standpoint of the community, and you folks live here in the community and work in the community otherwise, I presume. This is not a full-time career for you, Jill, is that correct?
Well, I'd like for it to be. Theater is my first love. I also do commercials and industrial film, a little bit of film work, television work.
And then at nights and on the weekends?
Well, my husband has just built us a home on a ranch that was in my family for years down near Harper, Texas.
I see.
So I commute back and forth.
Good. And how long have you been in Austin, Tom?
I came to Austin in 1978. I was living in San Antonio at the time. I came up here to take some graduate courses at the University of Texas, and when I finished that, I just sort of stayed here.
And been in the Live Oak since '82?
No, I think I did my first play at Live Oak about 2 years ago. I'm going into my 3rd season.
Oh, I see. You're relatively recent to the scene.
Well, Well, I think it was the beginning of, it was just after the summer of '88.
Well, now, you're a committed actor to, I mean, it's even though this is not what you're doing full-time, this is your vocation in a sense, I would...
I wanted to be an actor since I was 11.
Yes.
When I first saw a film of A Christmas Carol. And I wanted, in fact, I even got to play the character Scrooge not long ago, which kind of was fulfilled my ambition of playing that character.
Yeah.
But it was amazing to watch that film and think of the fact that this person got to do this full-time for a living and actually got paid to do it. And I think probably almost every actor can remember the first paying job they ever had, because it's one of those amazing things that you finally get paid for something that you have been doing willingly for free for so long.
Okay.
I'm still that way. I still forget to pick up my check. I do. It's like, oh, I get paid to do this?
What difference does that make, though, to have a professional status to this?
I think the best theater, whether it be professional or non-professional, is created because people, as Jill has just expressed, do it because they love to do it. The difference between a professional theater and what it can produce and a non-professional theater is simply this, that actors, that artists and technicians and managers are focusing a full-time effort on creating work, on creating the art, as opposed to coming into work at 7 o'clock after having worked a full day at the office or whatever else one does to earn one's living, and then trying to crank it up again to focus on rehearsing a play or directing a play, designing, building. And Live Oak is, at this point, in kind of a halfway situation. We do rehearse during the day sometimes. We do find ourselves in situations where our actors are full-time actors, like Jill and like several other actors in Austin, who are able to focus just on the work at hand. But we also use a lot of actors who are professional quality, professional skill, but also have to do other things to earn a living outside of theater, so that we rehearse maybe a little bit more than other theaters are able to rehearse. That tells in the quality of the product.
Well, one of the things that comes to mind is the fact that the quality is, there's a certain amount of truth that their quantity is quality in terms of time, and being able to have the margin of energy to give to it.
Indeed.
And I think the thing that we're going to be able to do today that will illustrate some of that is a couple of scenes from a couple of these plays. You might lead us into that first.
We're going to do two scenes. The first one is from The Immigrant by Mark Harlick. It's a play we did at Live Oak Theater with Tom and Jill two seasons ago. And it's a very, very successful play. It's about a Russian immigrant. There was a very brief time when immigrants did not land at Ellis Island exclusively, but some of them actually were brought into Port of Galveston. It was a 5-year period of time, around 1908 to 1913, I believe. And this, the subject of this play, Mr. Harlick, is the author's grandfather. Came into the Port of Galveston, made his way up to Hamilton, Texas, where he settled and where the family still lives, in fact. And this is a scene in the early part of the play. This Russian Jew come to Texas, does not speak English, is making his way by selling bananas, which he has brought up from Port of Galveston, as many of the immigrants did at that time. He came in with the bananas, he brings loads of them up to Hamilton in a little push cart, and he sells them for a penny apiece on the street. And this first scene is at a time when he does not speak English yet very well. He has a few words, and he's trying to communicate with one of the people in the community, and Ima Perry, who becomes his fast friend over the course of the play. But this is the very earliest meeting between the two of them. And so we'll just let the scene speak for itself then. Okay? Tom Parker is the immigrant, and Jill Parker Jones is Ima Perry.
Well, hello.
Hello.
You were at our house yesterday. My husband gave you some water.
Entschuldig mir. Ich verstehe das nicht. Ich kann nicht reden English. No English.
Oh, well, of course. My husband gave you some water yesterday. Water?
Wasser?
Yes. Oh, no, thank you. Well, I'd like some bananas, please.
Oh, jetzt willen kaufen Bananas. Sie warten, bis mein Händen will schmutzig mit Fett. Und sie fehlen 2 Stutz. Es mir schmiert der Rede, geht der Wogen. Bananas, ja. Bananas, penny apiece?
Yes.
Ich bin zu schmutzig. Schmutz, Schmutz, schmutzig. Nimm wusste das. Tag.
Oh, well, all right. That bunch right there looks just fine.
Ich bin zu schmutzig. Ich bet je.
Well, old Swan. You know, those are getting awful ripe. You really should sell those pretty quick. I could make some good bread.
Oh,
out
no,
of
no,
them.
no, 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 no. Die ess ich. Die verkauf ich. Bananas, penny apiece. No bananas, penny apiece. Nicht gut.
Oh, Dora. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll just take the whole bunch there. That should cover it.
Oh, no, 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 no.
No. Much obliged. Just never mind.
Much, oh, okay.
Okay. Well, we see an issue of communication there, don't we? It is, I think maybe one thing that comes to me is how, despite the fact that there's little literal communication, there's a lot of other kind of communication going on there.
Indeed, there's a desire, obviously, of a woman to help, to reach out and to help someone, and there's also a kind of a sense of, from this man, of wanting to give something too, of wanting to protect her. Don't take the bad bananas, just take the good ones. And so, and I think there's a response on each part to this almost instant caring about each other, and this friendship, of course, that is grows during the course of the play to become a lifelong friendship between these two people and their husbands and wives.
When you do a scene like that, does that do something to you? I mean, I know you're supposed to be detached to the extent that you're not just completely identified with the character, but I would think that you couldn't help but be to a large extent, really.
Well, for me, at its best, I am pretty much the character. Certainly, I know the difference, but in a scene, when I'm really doing the scene and when I'm fully focused, I'm not present, Jill's not present, but the character is, and certainly something that comes through me, which I would define as Holy Spirit at its best, comes through.
Okay. How do you feel about that, Tom?
Well, The Immigrant has a particular spot in my heart because it's such a warm human play. And one of the things I like about a lot of the things we've done at Live Oak is that I've never felt that I've had to do a show there where I had to apologize for anything. Not only the artistic quality of the show, but the content of the show. A lot of times, I have 2 children, well, one's 23 and the other's 19 now, but I've been acting ever since they were little kids, and one of the things that's always been a concern to me is, can my kids come to see me in this? Will I feel comfortable with my kids seeing me in this? Because sometimes they can't make the separation so easily between the character and the father on the stage. And this is the kind of play that, you know, you bring the wife, bring the kids, bring the dog, bring anybody, because it's a warm human play. I mean, it came from this young man's heart about his family, and it's the kind of thing that you enjoy doing.
I have to tell you, I have a friend who's came to the play the night that we did, and his father was an immigrant to this country, and during between the acts, he was just completely in tears.
Oh.
He had so identified with that, and it was so brought back a whole part of his family's life, and it was so touching. And I thought to myself, now, that's there's a lot of theater today you can't cry at. It seems to be too abstract or too avant-garde or something. It is hard to get connected with it, and something like this really does move you.
Well, we want to communicate clearly with our audience. I mean, we really don't want to produce plays that we are not connected to, that our actors are not connected to, our artists. I mean, artists should not fool around with material that they can't be connected to, because I think one of our primary jobs is to communicate our true feelings to our audience through the acting, the writing, the directing, the design of the work, the whole, everything that makes up the play. And the audience, of course, we're not doing this just for ourselves, for our own enjoyment, our own sense of feeling good about creating. We're doing this to communicate. The audience is half of the project.
Absolutely.
And it's a circle, and we put half of it together in the theater, in rehearsal, and the other half is supplied by the audience when they come to join us.
It's like the audience
That's
is
the piece.
the third actor. Right?
Yes.
Yes.
And we are very aware when you are out there and present for us, just as you're aware when we're on stage and doing our work.
Right.
We're equally aware of you.
Yeah, you get critiqued as well. You know?
Yes, you do.
The audience gets critiqued.
An intermission. It's like,
Between scenes.
definitely.
yeah.
You know, it's
Well,
well,
that's our-
audience. Let's
that's our
bring them
life-
back every night.
The preacher judging the congregation after the sermon, but I won't press that. But I've heard it said that the creative process is involving the one who's created, like the play, the author, then the actors who bring their interpretation and their understanding and their life experience to that, and that's creative. And then the audience has to be, as you say, to complete the cycle, so that it's a kind of a catalyst of the creative act involving all of those players.
And you throw the director in there too, of course, because the director has to take what the author has written. The playwright puts down his words. The actor brings their interpretations of the role, and the director has to sort things out to kind of give a
Left you
central
out,
focus
Don.
to the thing. Yeah.
No, I think what Tom is saying is absolutely right. Is to give focus. The director is not performing, and I always tell actors, if you do your imitation of my interpretation of your role, you're in big trouble. You have to do your interpretation of the role. My job as director, for instance, is to, as Tom says, I think it's put it just as plainly and simply as can be, to sort things out, to make sure that it has a focus, that it is a complete entity, that what each artist is bringing to the project has some cohesion, that it reinforces, that the artists reinforce each other. So it's sometimes a traffic cop and sometimes just a person who sorts things out.
And maybe elicits their talent. I mean,
Well, there
encourages
indeed that, and I put my interpretation, my spin, if you will, on the playwright's work to a certain extent. But I think it's very dangerous when directors say, well, who cares what he wanted to say with his piece, with his play? I want to say this with it, so I'll just rewrite Shakespeare.
Yeah,
And
right.
my feeling about that is if I want to say it a different way, write a different play, but don't try to twist
impose your own
another artist's work into by imposing my own spin on it.
Okay, well let's take a transition here to the next scene and see what we come up with.
This is another example of two good actors' ability to shift. Jill and Tom, by the way, have played numerous roles at Live Oak Theater over the last 3 or 4 years, and this is another example of their work. It's a scene from Driving Miss Daisy. This is a scene where Miss Daisy, who has thinks of herself now as fairly liberal and has bought tickets to the Martin Luther King banquet, and she has invited Booley, her son, and Booley's wife, reluctantly, and to attend this banquet. Booley doesn't want to go and doesn't think they should attend the Martin Luther King banquet. It may be bad for business. He has a problem with it, and suggests that if Daisy is determined to attend, that she should take Hoke, their black chauffeur, her black chauffeur, and essentially is calling Daisy's bluff. And well, we'll see what happens in the scene as that suggestion is made. So here's Daisy and Booley in a scene just prior to the Martin Luther King banquet in Atlanta.
How'd you feel, Mama?
Not a very good question to ask someone nearly 90.
Well, you look fine.
It's my ageless appeal.
Miss McClatchy gave me your message.
Well, Florine is invited, too.
Oh, thank you very much.
I think we should let Hope drive us. It'll be a crowd.
Mama, we have to talk about this.
Talk about what?
The feasibility of all this.
Well, fine, you drive. I thought I was being helpful.
Now, you know I believe Martin Luther King has done some mighty fine things.
Bully, if you don't want to go, why don't you just come right out and say so?
You know how I
Well,
feel
of course,
about
but
him.
Florine, huh?
Florine has nothing to do about this. I still have to conduct business in this town.
What, and the Wortham Company will go out of business if you attend the King dinner?
No, not exactly. But some of the men I do business with might not like it. Now, they wouldn't come right out and say so. They'd just sort of snicker behind my back, call me Martin Luther Wortham, something like that. But I begin to notice that my banking business wasn't being handled by the top dogs. I'd miss out on a few special favors, a few tips. Maybe I wouldn't hear about some lunches at the Commerce Club, little things like that. And Jack Raphael over at Ideal Press. Now, he is a New York Jew instead of a Georgia Jew, and as long as you got to do business with Jews, now all the really smart ones come from New York, don't they? So some of the boys might start throwing their business to Jack instead of old Martin Luther Wortham. I don't know, maybe it wouldn't happen like that, but that's the way things work. Besides, now, if we don't use those seats, somebody else will, and the good Dr. King will never know the difference now, will he?
If we don't use the seats, I'm not supposed to go either?
Mama, you can do whatever you want.
Well, thank you for your permission.
Can I ask you something? When did you get so all fired up about Martin Luther King? Now, time was I would have heard a different story.
Why, Bully, I have never been prejudiced in my life, and you know it.
Okay. Why don't you ask Hoke to go to the dinner with you?
Hoke? Why, don't be ridiculous. He wouldn't go.
Ask him and see.
Well, we'll find out what happens next in terms of how did that play in?
Well, there was a scene at which Daisy asked Hoke to go to the banquet, but she waited until they were on the way to the banquet to do the asking, and Hoke called her on that and said, next time if you want me to go with you, you ask me at the right time. Don't you wait till we're in the car on our way there. And he scolded her, and they had a little huff. But Hoke and Daisy, of course, were friends by this point, and
Well, actually, at one point, I say to him, Hoke, you're my best friend.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a real moment of knowing that's the truth.
Mm-hmm.
This black man is my best friend.
Mm-hmm. Was that toward the end of the play?
Yes.
Was that connected at all to this Martin Luther King incident?
next scene.
No, it's a little bit later, and
She's having a breakdown.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
She's having trouble remembering. And
knowing what is real and what's not real anymore.
Yeah.
And that's right, that precedes the rest home.
He snaps her out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then he comes out to the rest home and visits. And the end of the scene of the play is wonderful. He feeds me Thanksgiving pie, pumpkin pie.
Well, I think that that is one of the best illustrations that I know of how prejudice, which we tend to think is somebody else's problem, is still our problem. And that there was a fellow, Kyle Haselden, that wrote a book called The Racial Problem in Christian Perspective. And he said that prejudice is like alcoholism. The alcoholic can't see the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And what other people call the problem is the solution from his or her standpoint. And prejudice is I mean, it's very clear there. I mean, that's one of the best dramatic illustrations of that I've seen.
And done so in a very courageous way. These are people like us. These are not ignorant people. These are not disadvantaged people. These are people like us, middle-class, educated people who think of themselves as being fair and honest, and who are still plagued by residue of prejudice, of bigotry, and it affects all of our lives.
One of the things that's drawn me and kept me in theater is that, and even sometimes from people outside of the theater world, even sometimes people in the Christian community, I would say, sometimes look upon actors as being a little weird and a little avant-garde and maybe a little strange. But one of the things that you don't find in a community of actors is a great deal of prejudice. The only thing you might be jealous about somebody about is their ability. But as far as their race or their religion or all those things, I have never seen that come into the situation in a theater company. You know,
It's too much of a community to be hung up on that, then, is what you're saying.
Well, I think we all have a common bond anyway, which is the love of acting. So that's our focus. So I don't think we think about race. Or...
I was just before the show talking to Don about Paul Baker, who helped start the Dallas Theater Project, and it was at Baylor for a number of years, and his emphasis in drama was community, the folks working together, and I know there was a school in Dallas, an inner city school, that he helped get a project started, and all of a sudden these kids were not only graduating but gaining honors in college and so on, just through their community experience.
I think that theater has a responsibility beyond what we create in the auditorium. I mean, for the people coming in who can afford the price of a ticket.
And aren't you doing a dropout?
Well, our sense of this responsibility is carried out in a youth at risk project that is being developed at Live Oak Theater, where we intend to bring in 30 to 40 young Austinites who are either gang members or at risk of becoming gang members, and offering them an opportunity to work with professional playwrights, directors, actors, designers on a project where they will actually write a play, perform that play, premiere it at Live Oak Theater. They'll be paid for their work, just as all the actors and artists at Live Oak are paid, and they will premiere this piece at Live Oak and then take it back into the community to perform at churches, schools, and community centers during the year.
I see. Well, I think that is an expansion from the community that is just among your troupe, beyond the walls of those that are within your theater here in town, and to the whole town. And I would like, in behalf of the whole town, to thank you for being here today. You have graced us with your talent and your spirit.
Thank you.
And the spirit and the values of the drama and this community, I think, have very well been brought to us, and we hope that you'll join us again next week for Austin Faith Dialogue. I'm Richard Thompson, thanking you for watching, and peace be with you.